Hey, welcome to this Global Hack Week. Today, actually, it's the last day. This is not the last stream. Um, but trying to manage like days in this worldwide community, it's kind of fun because we usually refer to day or time space on ET time. Uh, we also give, for example, IST. But well, what I want to say is this: this is the one of the last streams. We only have actually Ryan A with Nature of Code Part Two coming after this, but that will be tomorrow, just about before the closing ceremony. So I hope you get the chance to watch many of these streams during this Global Hack Week. And if you don't worry. There's always the recordings of the streams that you can find on our YouTube channel. And well, I'll start by introduce myself. My name is Alberto. Hey, hi, Way. Actually, it's great to see you here around. I wasn't expecting to have that much shout-ins because of the times, of course. And since it's one of the last ones, but hey, that's great to have you here around. I also see another comment from Nithing4747. So hi, thank you for watching. Where are you watching from? That will be interesting. And I cut myself. Sorry, I was saying I am Alberto. I'm your Major League hacking coach from Mexico, and I'm very excited to be here. I have to apologize first because I was planning for this to be a series of four streams, actually. One happening yesterday, but unfortunately, I had to attend some personal compromises. And I wasn't able to give that stream. So I am going to gap the content from previous stream part three. I know this is titled as part three and part four, so it's all bundled up, right? If you missed part one and part two, I really recommend you to take a look to those streams. I was talking about open source just as it is. No open source like applied to a technology, no examples of open source like using open source software, which is great. But I wanted to give a stream talking about the theory, if I can say that, behind open source, what it is, why, and how. So I think I answered those three: why, what, and how. First stream, and I think almost half of the second one was based of the getting started, in which we learn these concepts of what open source is, a little bit history, how it was born, difference between open source, for example, and free software. Um, some examples. It was like a really quick introduction to Git and GitHub, how to do some contributions very quick, like in the basic. And also, I was speaking of the backbone of open source, which is actually community. I think open source, it's based on community, it's based on people, actually, not software itself. I know open source has like a more pragmatical way of thinking, and we discussed that a little bit as well, in comparison, for example, with free software, which is more ethical, even political. But yeah, I think you should watch the previous streams. It's you don't need to watch them to understand this one. Actually, I'm going to do a little recap, and we are going to talk more about workflows of working with open source as a contributor, as maintainer, and well, best practices. But hey, if you don't know what a contributor is, what a maintainer is, that was intention for the previous streams, like getting into this open source world, some lingo references, and well, that. Hey, what time is there? For me, it's 11 p.m. So I'll be up in one, two, three, yeah, like one in the morning. So actually, I'm getting used to this because I am also covering another event like for APEC times. So like working 3 a.m. in the morning, it's like no big deal. And of course, before I forgot, I always forgot this, but I here's the checking link. Go ahead and check yourself so you can get those community points and get this swag for this global hack week, right? So great. Now that said, let me start sharing my screen and let's start with this session: contributing and best practices. Hi, Alberto, says Tharba Chitnis. So, hi, thank you for joining. Let us know here in comments where are you watching, like what part of the world I'm in. And okay, the objectives of the session. It's at the end. I hope you can understand the ways you can contribute code and no code in a meaningful way, sorry. And I want to clarify here because this is something we also cover in the getting started part. Usually people tend to believe non-code contributions are not worthy or not important. All-time contributions are great, and I will say these non-code contributions are actually the basis of open source. We need to create and do a community around this and then start contributing in real coding, right? So also, you will be able to follow a contribution workflow. Now I can remember, for example, Wei, it's here. We can speak about his open source project. Let me look for it. Wei, if you give me permission, I can share with the audience. But yeah, I will show you how to contribute, for example, to Wei's open source project. Basically, it's this: you fork, you branch, you do your stuff, you do changes. So you create a pull request for merging your changes with the code base. The maintainer reviews it, and then you get your merge approved. We are going to watch a little demo of one workflow I follow for contributing in a past Global Hack Week. That's actually live. That's a real product, and you're seeing it right now. It's MARP. I used MARP to generate these slides. So I ground everything in Markdown files, and then I export them using MARP tool to PDF, say HTML, whatever slide format you wanted, even the Microsoft one. I can remember the extension for that, but yeah. Yes, so great. We have confirmation from Wei for sharing the open source project. So we will taking a look to that in a second. Apply best practices for issues, pull request, the documentation, and automations. We are going to talk about these not so trivial examples for creating automations and templates for your project, communities, etc. And we are going to understand the perspective of the maintainers, how to um, well, yeah, how to have a healthy project for these type of practices. The other part, besides the getting started, sorry, I forgot to mention this, was maintaining healthy communities. Welcoming, it's the word I used for that session. But yeah, welcoming communities, it's also a requirement, I will say, in open source. Um, Recently, I heard this phrase, which I think it's really accurate. Like, we all want to things when we work, right? We want to work in something we're passionate about, um, or something we care of, and we want to work with people that we feel confident, we feel excited to share space. So having one, it's great, but having two, it's a blast. And the second depends entirely on us when we are doing open source, because the community, it's responsibility of all the people we construct it, right? It's different when you're in a company. Sometimes you don't get to take those decisions, but in open source, we truly have that. I think that's one of the best things about open source. So, we are going to do this small recap and framing for the previous sessions. Just the things that I consider are like some things we can not miss. But don't worry, if you heard a concept or I'm talking of something you don't understand, that I just assumed you already get the term or something like that, don't worry, ask here in the comment section. As you see, I am putting attention into my second monitor to answer them as short as possible. So then we're going to see these ways to contribute, the contribution workflow, the demo. So we're going to check some tips and tricks on writing good issues and pull requests, the maintainer best practices, and then we're going to do a little hands-on forking and making suggestions to a project. This one, it's mine. This is a project I created for previous open source global hack week, but I think it's worth keep iterating over that for doing it better and more community, because I don't know, I think we haven't like exploded as we should. But yeah, we will get to that. Finally, some reflections and next steps. Let's starting with the recap and the framing. And this is what I was talking about with the community. Contributions are act of collaboration and trust. So here I will divide it in two parts. One, it's that you don't need to came up with an entire solution, an entire fix, like a big new feature for open source project. Small focused changes are the ones that scale. You know, this analogy of the rolling snowball down the hill, it's something like that. You're part of something bigger, right? And that being part of something bigger, it's the second part. It's the collaboration. It's the being inside a community and understanding that you're following not on your only desire. It's great to have a vision of a product, of a project, but also having the ability to share your vision and convince other, or even save or reserve a space to let others convince you for some other ideas. It's the great part of open source, I would say. And well, again, in this section, we're going to focus on the technical, more technical, how to contribute and some best practices at it. And that being yeah, contributor, and being also a maintainer, which is the other side of being inside open source, we're going to check some tips and tricks and on how to maintain these projects healthy, right? So, really quick, what's the difference when you're a contributor? You're inside a community. You're probably like continuously doing work over a tool that you love, that you're passionate about. But being a maintainer, it's being in the core of that project, like taking decisions, taking about leadership, and well, you're the responsible of assigning or approving the pull requests, the reviews, the issues, these kind of things, right? So you're more in the spotlight when things happen. So you will have to resolve problems. You will have to uh, get your hands in the fire, for saying somehow. So yeah, both are great, and I will say that it's like hosting a hackathon, for example, in our community. When you host a hackathon, you probably, if you're an organizer, you're one of the ones receiving a lot of charge, but also when the event it's done, the reward of it will be much more than participating in it. And participating is great. We all love participating in hackathons. um, but hey, it's like during the event you are feeling great and everything, but after the event it's like, oh, I will wish to attend another hackathon, right? So let's continue to the ways on contribute. And I again, I want to talk about these code versus non-code contributions. The non-code contributions are wider. I mean, like, there is documentation, there's even design, triage, moderation. This is not like, people not often uh, value this as they should, like. And this is why I say non-code contributions are the base of open source, because yeah, like open source, for code, it's core. I mean, I don't know, like, well, I don't want to get into that. The point is, when the project starts scaling, having people dedicating time to answer for issues, to actually take time to read threads on forums, on discussions, explaining the vision, dividing tasks among the project, having like an internal PM, um, reporting if something it's like out of code of conduct, taking action if it gain a little trust from the maintainers, those kind of things. It's truly valuable. Are hackathons kind of hiring process? uh, what do you mean with hiring, at Harvard? I think I don't get in your question. Mm, do you mean for emailing hacking, or like in general? Can you expand in your question? This is so useful. Markdown to Slack deck. Yeah, sorry, where I missed your comment, but yes, actually, this is how I run all of my streams. I prepared first like a script in Markdown, then I like just create the divisions per slice and export it to slide deck. Yeah, that's why in all my streams I have the slideshow, and well, it's a way I can easily have a visual aid of what I am talking about. I'm saying contributing on a global scale and innovations. I think I am understanding your question. Sorry. Okay, I'll read again. Are hackathons kind of hiring process? I'm saying contributing on a global scale and innovations. Hmm. Well, if I understand your question, I will say, like, could you monetize your participation in open source? Answer is yes. So that's a great question, and we kind of talk about this in getting started part, and that's one of the main difference between free software and open source. In both of them, there's a misconception of the free part. In English, we only have the free term, but it's commonly confused for free as in freedom and free as in no charge or no cost. Uh, it doesn't mean open source again. You the software is free to use as into terms of the no cost. There are a lot of open source projects that actually have a cost and actually have a way to monetize. um, the freedom in here, it's the part of free to use, free to download, free to reproduce, free to execute, free to modify, free to distribute copies of the modifications. uh, I understand the source can be accessed. Yeah, yeah, that's the main part. And actually, those are the core principles of free software movement, and that's the main difference. Uh, while free software, it's again a matter more ethical, political, and it's based on principles of this: the freedom of execute, the freedom of download, the freedom of the freedom of modify, and freedom to distribute copies of that. Those are for free software, and in open source this is more practical. It's like more in the focus of the company terms. Imagine releasing this and having a lot of people taking a look, watching it, constructing. And for example, in Meta, in Microsoft, in Amazon, even a lot of these big companies have a lot of developers that are being paid for working in these open source projects. And yeah, so you can truly be you can truly monetize your work in open source. But hey, I think that's the question. I understand. Okay, yeah. So great. Thanks for the question. Um, Sorry, I think I lost track, but I will continue with the ways to contribute. We were talking about the triage and moderation, localization, trans. Okay, I will think. Think I write down incorrectly. What I want to say it was translation. Sorry, translate documentation or UI, and in this case, you can think of with modern translators, you cannot. It's like silly doing these because even I don't know, Chrome, Mozilla, they already translate page for you. Google does it, but I do think they are they are good, but they are not that great when it comes to really understanding. And we have to understand each different language has again different barriers and different things we can understand deeply as humans, and we can make a better translation. And again, I will return to the free example. For example, I speak Spanish natively, and there are two different words for that. There is free, which can be interpreted as gratis, and free, which can be interpreted as libre, and both are the same word in English. And in technical terms, that's the same. I mean, there are some technical terms that cannot be translated to the language. And in Spanish, we call these anglicismos. Um, and those are words that come from English, but we don't care to translate it. You cannot translate software, for example. You cannot translate hardware, for example. We say software even in Spanish. So again, it's worth taking some time for this and value it as it should. Then the automation and tooling, this same, it's great. And for this, let me unshare a little the screen, and I will open something that you will love. I hope. Give me a second, and I'm looking for it. Oh my god. Okay, I think here I have it. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Here it is. So, talking about these automation and toolings, let's start again discussing of signals of beginner-friendly projects. These have frequent responses. You will see some open source projects have a big time of inactivity, like months and even years. They have a good first issue labels, clear contribution docs, and one thing I want to clarify before we move on from the good first issue, it's that a lot of people tend to believe like good first issue are some things that the maintainers or the developers are just too lazy to do. And I've seen a lot of good first issues that are truly not good first. And I want to say that you probably face this same in many projects you encounter. The intention of good first issues is not because of the maintainers or regular contributors cannot do this, because yeah, probably they can, but having the good first issue that truly are good first, it's perfect for hosting a welcoming community, for hosting a welcoming project. Uh, some of these good first issues should be even created or reserved for beginners, because when you start in the open source world and you start with your good first issue, your first one that will say, um, it feels amazing and you end up falling in love with that participation. You feel involved in the project. It feels more real. So this good first issue, uh, again, you probably will find some of them that are truly not, and I will say that's a shame and it's sad, but some of them, uh, I will hope more of them, are intended for you to feel welcomed in a project, to feel welcomed in a community. So yeah, the thing I was looking for, it's this one. Threaded Discord bot. A Discord bot that keeps channels clean by converting replies into threads. That it's a great initiative from our fellow Way that's here watching the stream. I hope he's still around. But yeah, if you don't know Way, it's yay, it's here. So if you don't know Way, it's the GOAT coach here at the Millie Hacking. Um, I hope you have the pleasure to meet him at some point. And he has this incredible open source project. So uh, let's look for things we can find in a welcoming project. First, it's right now I see here the repository. So let's open it here. Also, for support, it has documentation, book reports, feature request, and add to server. So that's great. I see here, wait, threaded at this group, but also the README. As you enter the repository, maybe this is a better Oh, example, ways social fi. Oh, I will take a look through it in a second. Way, thanks for sharing. But I will also talk about this in a second because I do see some things that are great. When we enter the repository, we see a clear README with some things happening, a good table of contents that we will look for it in a second, but also GitHub's also telling us, thanks to this tab, Way project has a contribution guideline. And this is amazing for you if you want to start with open source projects because they tell you directly with documentation how you can contribute to the project. There are guides for development setup, code styling, because we should maintain a code style, testing, submitting changes. If you want to report an issue, if you want to add the code of, sorry, a link to the code of conduct and the API documentation. For example, weights also following a license. The license is the MIT. If you don't know about licensing, I recommend you to take a look to choosing a license.com. I think that was the link. Oh my god. Choo- oh, I misspelled, sorry. Yeah. Oh my god. Find the perfect open source license. Well, okay. This is one page. This was not the one I was intending to find. But let's open myself repositories and I have one open source project template. Here I'm going to take a look to my slides, and in my slide markdown file I have okay, here the one I was looking for. It's from GitHub. What's the difference? Choosing a license.com. Choose. Oh wow, it's verb conjugated. Okay, one's choosing a license and the other one's choose a license. Well, the one I use normally, it's this one. I mean, once you use it one time or two times, it doesn't matter. But if you want to learn more about licenses, this is the project. I will share this with you here on slides. Sorry, in the comment section. Um, hey, Durgash, thanks for joining. Also, let me close this first too. And another thing I was wanting to say about Waze project, it's, for example, contributing, and Way has a link here for the code of conduct or standards. Be respectful and inclusive to all contributors. Focus on constructive feedback. Help others. Unacceptable behavior and enforcement. So this is great. I will just, for example, suggest to Wade that some like having the code of conduct here inside the contributing, it's kind of hidden. I will, for example, to put this in comparison to this open source project template I have, not because it's better, I don't want to say that, but just because I have this here directly. If we see the tabs, we have the README, the code of conduct, contributing, and the license. Now, code of conduct can be more easy accessible, and it will be displayed in the markdown format. So yeah, great suggestion. Yeah, no worry. Thank you. But yeah, probably here in the, yeah, for example, here in the README, in table of content, I don't see like the code of conduct, but adding the code of conduct markdown file will allow this to be displayed in the tab section. Like This I have. Yeah, I have a .github folder, and you can hide them there if like you don't want them to have display this directly on the source root. But yeah, I have the kind of and the contributing. But yeah, also another thing I want to say that ways project has that it's great, it's these direct action buttons. So let's inspect the readme as if it is, oh yeah, for sure, readme as it is the markdown file in code. These buttons are, for example, the threaded, the Python Discord, the sorry, the add to Discord. Let's look for it. Add to Discord. It's a link for thread it git.ci. So let's open it. So I love the direct button to the direct into the page. That's amazing, and the also the landing. It's really good. I will say, for example, what's this? Oh, okay. This is the Discord. The report issues. Okay, amazing. View documentation. Okay. Yeah. So talking about the no non-code, sorry, contributions we can make. We inspect Waze project, and I could say GitHub, it's great. We have a good README. We already suggested, for example, displaying like in a more public section the code of conduct. Another thing I could suggest to way it's adding, for example, a discussion section. Here we can have it on Discord, sorry, on GitHub. Again, I will take this as comparison. That's the intention of having this template. The here in template, you can hide, sorry, you can find all good recommendations and all good practices I'm going to talk about during the session. In the discussions tab, in this case, I haven't personalized it, but it will be great to dedicate some time to the discussions section to change categories. For example, I could create or delete some categories that I have here or sections. Uh, and these for having the community around to talk about the product, the ideas. Some of the big open source project I have seen don't use discussions. They use directly the issues, but that's up to the community. You can have, for example, a dedicated Discord. You can, again, these are all good practices. The practice in general, it's just to have like a way to communicate between the product users, the community around your open source project. This can be wherever the community decided. Uh, a Discord server, Slack channel. Um, Again, I've seen some of the big open source projects using directly the issues in GitHub. Some of them actually using these discussion sections. For example, Blender, we were checking the Blender repository, and the discussion in Blender it's host like in their external page in blender.org, and they even have discussions forums for different communities around Blender. That's the Blender is so huge. That's what I want to say. And they even have the possibility of doing that. Um, Yeah, very. So let me share the URL for this open source project template. You have it here, and I share it because Wade told like very cool as template. Can you share? Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Well, continuing, for example, with the suggestions we can make the way it's like, for example, you can open the discussions, or you can um, directly do or create a Discord for the Discord bot, or some place for the community to talk about this. I don't know. I think maybe a Discord will be interesting due to the nature of the project itself. But yeah, what other thing we could suggest to way? For example, let's take a look to the contributing, and in the submitting or reporting issues. The reporting issues guide, it's simple. If you encourage books or have feature requests, please open an issue. Include the following details when reporting a problem. Steps to reproduce the issue, what you expect to have, what actually happened, include console output if possible. Now, let's try to do that. Let's open an issue and let's select new issue. And you will see this is an empty issue request. Now let's again return to the template and compare to what we can find in other open source projects. In this case, in my contributing guideline, how to report bugs, for example, it's simple as use the bug report template, because in if I want to use the issue one and I want to create a new issue, it will tell us what you want to create an issue for: a bug report, a feature request, a pull request itself, or a blank issue. This blank issue will be like the one we have here. But let's return and oh, sorry, return more than I wanted. Let's add a book report, for example. And here it give us like the template of what we were expecting to have. Describe the book, how to reproduce, the expect behavior, and if you can, some screenshots. Now let's do that for the feature request. Describe the solution you like, additional context. Now these templates are really simple. I mean, like they just were like ideas. When I give this session back in, I think it was previous Global Hack Week, I recommend you, and I actually should suggest to you that you could do a pull request or do a contribution to this open source template to try to maintain or add more details to these templates. So so far these haven't happened. I have no forks on the repo. I do have some stars. That's interesting. But same we could do two ways project. So if you're interested in contributing to this great open source project, you don't have to be, again, I know it's challenging. I know it can be like, oh, what I am going to know more than Wade, if Wade's amazing about coding, for example. But you can find these type of suggestions that are no code based, and you can start working on them. You can say, hey, Wade, I love your project. I'm really interested in helping out with creating this tool and make it possible. What about if I help you adding some issues template? What about if I help you adding some pull request template? If I help you adding some automations, that I see that we also have all some automations. Let's take a look to what automations we have. Um, oh, also include a video demo. That's amazing. Deploy. Okay, it has something about Docker. Main brand type. Set a Docker build. Check out repository. Log. artifact, testable image, command and purify. Okay, yeah, we do have some automations, but here's another idea. And this one needs do code, but you actually do have to know how to code. But let's split it into two parts. The first suggestion or the first contribution that it's no code is opening an issue and telling like, hey, I would love to see the status of the deployment tool here on the README, or some place where I can see if the bot it's up, it's working, or why this is failing me my local. Maybe it's my internet connection. Maybe I come here and I see that the status is currently down because it has an automation for that. Then you contributed. You're contributing with ideas, you're contributing with vision, you're contributing with putting effort, time, and dedicating. And again, dedicating time in a project, it not always require coding. It sometimes requires a vision, it requires ideas, it requires a lot of documentation, it requires no code contributions. um, and yeah, at some point someone will have to do that automation, and that will be code, of course. But yeah, now let's take a look to in the way to contribute. uh, Now we're here, way shared with us another tool that will be amazing to see. Way socialify, you'll see a lot of forks. This is amazing. It even has a sponsor one, which is another thing I didn't mention. I don't think I see that in the previous one. Yeah, this doesn't have one. But we talked about the monetizing. Um, I do support a lot the idea of giving to the products you use, the products you love. So let's take a look to this one. Socialify your project, share with the world. A lot of stars, 10 issues, some pull requests. Same here, for example, in the code of conduct, here now it's visible. So way it actually do this. Yeah, scope and enforcement. Contribution covenant. Yeah, I was taking a look. If you don't know how to create a code of conduct, because you may be thinking again like, wow, that's too advanced for me, there are a lot of guides and a lot of templates and a lot of how to's and instructions. Same for the license, same for everything that's already there. And for example, here in the covenant code of conduct, I am using actually the same. If you see contribution code of conduct, so um, the point of this, I mean, again, it's that removing the idea of ourselves that open source it's a closed environment. It's um, it's for experts. What are the misconception? Well, those two. Open source it's supposed to be welcoming. Open source it's supposed to be about communities, and open source it's not required to be an expert, or I mean, you don't have to be an expert. You will become one eventually, I am pretty sure of that, if you start working and contributing to open source. um, I do think that one of my personal like experiences and development in my professional life um, came from working in open source or understanding open source. But yeah, you tell your CEO to give me a yo. You all need help with your platform. Uh, what you mean, like StreamYard, the mainly hacking one? Uh, a Shanik, we are open to receive feedback if you want to share it. But okay, let's continue. Here, for example, another thing I love about displaying in open source, it's the contributors part. If something it's important in open source in healthy communities again is to make the acknowledgments and share it with the people like these contributor help us make this possible. So let's continue in the usage social image as a service, image download CLI, some examples. Run social file locally. We want to bring that out, help showcase your project to the board by engineering a project like the one above. It includes a ton of options, including custom logo descriptions, blah blah blah, joined. Okay, this is great. I want to see. Yeah, it's the one you're using here. I don't know. Um, but yeah, let's continue. And here, for example, we can see some issues. I think in the labels there is no good first issue. Yeah, there is. So we have two good first issues. Hey, why don't you, someone from the audience that are looking for your first contributions, come to this project? Remember, Way Socialify, and you find these two issues. One probably it's already assigned. Let's see. Let's talk about this actually. Perhaps you should upgrade the UIs instead with its dependency. It Way got it right. This is great for good first issue, help wants, and dependencies. Hi, can I take this issue? I'm not familiar with Tailwind or the ACI, but I already started reading up how to rate any pointers. Okay, yeah, it was assigned. Much appreciated. This is how a welcoming project, welcoming community looks like, and I love it. It's amazing. Um, Upgrading to before change also before I'm running it they see following thanks for the bump I'm returning from index. Okay, here for example even the sometimes being ping it's not a nice thing, and also this was like not that much time after that. Remember, open source rounds of our free time as developers, and even if you are a freelance indie developer and you dedicate uh, your whole time to this, you probably end up uh, not responding the same time. So we find a nice way to answer and say like, thanks, I'm returning and I will fix it. And sometime after that, this will do. All right, I have my exams, technical interview for my age. Okay, that was amazing. Like people being nice to each other, understanding their circumstances, but getting the work done, right? Thanks. I hope it do well. Then mention this and another service. Looks great. Just checking. Great. Appear in the future. Okay. Linked up to request that will close this on June 13th. And let's see. I'm guessing this hasn't been approved, but probably due to a good reason. Sequence diagram. Wow, this is amazing. Um, okay, I am planning to internship in the months. I haven't made time to work on this. However, let me know if you want this prior marriage. It on your I believe it at least one other reason depends on this. So make sure. Okay, as you see, original owner of this, it's like pausing this. It requires a break. This was on July 13, so you could probably try to resolve the problem here. If I'm getting this right, it was due to testing or something like that. I'm not completely sure, but you could presume from it and keep on with the work. Another possibility as well is to work on this other website theme. I appreciate that. Added an out theme for the social preview. Thanks for opening the ticket. With this was assigned, but we're open to new prior to out the out theme. Yeah, I think this is the one that depended from the previous. So great. Great examples is also. Thank you so much, Wei, for sharing. I think we all learned a lot from this, and it helped me a lot to explain the contribution, uh, the ways to contribute, not only in coding. Uh, I mean, for coding, I think you all got it. Like feature test, bugs, fixes. Um, that's pretty standard. So contribution workflow at a high level. Thank you for walking through the OS best practices and suggestions. No way, thanks again. The contribution workflow at a high level. I mean, we already take a look to some examples here on on these issues, but in general, this is the first part: finding a task. It could be an open issue. It could be something you propose. It could be something other people proposed. It could be a bug fix. It could be a feature. It could be many ideas you have. Uh, but it should start from an issue. I don't recommend you like having an idea and just making a pull request out of it. First discuss it. And again, for open source, remember, this is always about communication more than coding. And the other big rule of open source is be respectful. Imagine you create a project you're proud of and you polish it and you make it open source, and someone makes you out of the nowhere a pull request like saying, I'm refactoring all your code because it was awful. How do you think that is? Uh, Being respectful, it's a big uh, big rule of open source. And one of the things of being respectful is opening an issue first. If you open an issue, it's like if you start a conversation. You say, hey, what if, what about, have you think of, hey, I've noticed this, and you can propose then a new feature and you'll receive feedback from the maintainer, from the even not one, even it could be more than one contributors talking about like, hey, this song this looks like great, and you can even make your state in the issue like, I would like to see this, and I'm open to work on this if we all agree. Because this, again, it's about agreement. It's about sharing visions. It's about the people behind the code. So find yourself a task. And once you have confirmation from the community, then you can fork. Hey, what about if I'm for sure that this feature should be pushed, or this path for the project should be the one, but I don't agree with the maintainers. Check the license. Some license allows one thing we call the fork. I mean, not fork in as in forking the repo. Uh, you will fork the repo, but the example I want to clarify here, it's you divide ways as developers, and you part from a common code base. That happened, for example, if you're familiar with Web3, and I think I mentioned this before, with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Lite, with Bitcoin and what was the other? Well, there are many forks from GitHub because at some point community didn't agree, and that's possible. I mean, that's something that happens. There are also in how to say it, in common software there are forks of projects that we commonly use. And again, I mentioned this Visual Studio Code. There are a lot of forks of Visual Studio Code, and some of them are getting really popular. um, I don't know. I have, there are many examples, but I have no more in mind. um, so there are these two paths. Try to agree, try to find a task, and then you fork. You can follow another part, but then it will be like getting out of the a community, trying to start another based on an existing one. um, but yeah, that I think that's a topic for another scenario. So you find yourself a task, you fork the repo, you make your changes, and for doing those changes, one this it's not a recommendation for open source, but in general for Git, as a Git core flow, you create a branch for it. I recommend you to take a look to Git flow. It's basic, and it's like a convention on how you name or how you create your branches. For example, you should never directly push for main. I mean, if you're only the only author and everything, and I have done it even for educational purposes, but you create a main, you create a develop one, and then from develop you create like releases, or you can create features. Um, if you're following any agile system, you can even create for sprints. I have seen that. I'm not a big fan, but hey, you create your branch. You create again. Remember, if we return to this small focus and and small and focused changes that will scale. And why is that? Again, imagine that you have to read a pull request from someone that override 100 files because he decided no more trailing comma it's going to be used. That's not respectful. You're not following conventions. You're not following the styling guides. If they are not, you can assume if they are using or they're using trailing comma, it's like okay, I wouldn't remove them from the rest unless we discussed that in the issue, and that's what we wanted. But that's a silly example. So you have your single change, your focus change, you create your range, um, you commit it. And again, this is not for open source, but in Git, as a tip, write a meaningful message, something that sorry that states what you actually did, and then you open a pull request. Some projects have again these pull request templates that will tell you everything you need to feel for having a good documentation and a good history of changes. But if it doesn't, again, try to do it yourself. Try to document your changes. Try to be clear and make a description of what you changed, what was the reason for that. If you have a decision that was not discussed, I really love, for example, for UI changes, when someone adds the screenshot of the previous and the current with the change. Um, I have even created automation tools for when you create a pull request, a temporal deployment is generated so you can see the changes like in a preview deployment. So put effort. I want to say that put the effort in your pull request. So then engage in the review. And what do I mean with engage? As we saw here, uh, the pull request for this one had not only was not only generated, and of course this is creating a summary, a description, everything great here, but it received feedback, right? Like, for example, request review from Copilot. Okay, here. Could you make sure the input graphical match? You will receive the feedback. You will receive these kind of changes. And in the next example, I will show you, for example, for example, um, a discussion that complete into merging. So let's move to that. Well, before we continue, the final step is celebrate. You got your uh, pull request merged, and some uh, open source projects have contributors markdown. I do love them. Actually, I don't have one in my open source template, but I will. I will. I'm just waiting for my first contributor. Uh, but yeah, be the first contributor, and I'll create the contributions markdown. This inspired me to delete code and create pull requests. What you mean with this inspires you to delete code and create pull requests? I don't know what you are understanding here. Um, delete code. Okay, well, the demo. Let's explore the contribution I've done in well, it was a past global week. I cannot remember which one. And I did this to Markdown. So, oh my God, sorry. I want to open, yeah, as an external. So the project, again, I am going to talk about, it's MARP CLI. It's a tool that allows you to um, create slide decks from Markdown files. It has a page. It has a team in GitHub. And well, I found an issue. The issue, I cannot remember what it was. Oh yeah, I can remember now. Sorry. The issue is that when generating the HTML format, um, the title here for the tab wasn't taken automatically from the title of the slides. Um, you do have, and I will show you how it works. So for the marked here, I'm going to open this a little. You do have to create like mark through the theme, paginate, footer, size, and here title. You do have to add this title in order to get the title in the HTML for the slides. And someone opened an issue telling like, hey, if I don't add a title, I want the title to be automatically taken by the first title in the slide. What's the first title? Remember when we're doing when we are doing markdown, the hashtags are h's, and so this is h2. The first one will be in this case objectives, but if I add here an h1, for example, or open source learning, open source, which actually it's the footer I added, but it's the title of these sessions, learning about open source. This will be taken as the HTML one. So for doing that, I'm going to, oh, this also has a Visual Studio add-on. So I could use the CLI or I can use the add-on from Visual Studio that internally it's using the CLI, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to exporting this to HTML, slide deck, export, replace. And you see here in new one that was generated, the well, I don't know if you can see it, but if you zoom enough, you will see that this title now it's learning OSS. This is thanks to my change. Actually, that was my contribution to this project. I have to drop for sleep. Yeah, I think. Great session. We'll watch back recording later. Thanks, Alberto. Hey, no, thanks to you, Wei, for being here. It was a great help for me to for you to share the slides, sorry, the repositories of your open source projects. They were great. So sorry, returning here, this was my contribution, like doing the automatically detection of the title and put that as the HTML title, uh, because for slides in PDF and the one from Microsoft PowerPoint. Yeah, I remember it. Uh, for that, it doesn't matter, right? This is just for users as me that we generate slides in HTML. So yeah, that was the contribution, and I will return this as this was, and return here. Well, let's close this other and let's go to the, okay, we will leave it here. Okay, with that in context, that's the pull request. Let me also make this bigger so we can understand it better. Automatically extract the title from first heading in Markdown. First heading meaning, again, not the first H1, but if there is no H1, the first H2, if there is no H3, H4, and H5, and so on and so on. This was made on May 14. Description, deal pull request introducts functionality to automatically extract. Okay, we covered this. Changes, added the extract title from first heading function to the info plug in TS. It tracks through the markdown tokens and find the first. Skips malformed and empty headings. Stop searching early when an H1 is found for better performance. I think here I could correct, not suppose not an H1, but for any H. Update the info plugin, use blah blah blah. Okay, the purpose, some additional comments, and relate the issue. So let's go to see relate issue. This was the thing. Actually, this was opened by the same author, I think. Uh, you will see this commonly from maintainers. Like it will be, it will it will be good to fill the title, convert HTML automatically from the heading of the slide when title option and title global directives not passed. So I am passing it uh, because again I am focusing myself for HTML. But if I don't pass it, the one we find will be objectives. So as the author mentioned it will be good. I mean, it's not something it was breaking the project, but it was a nice addition, right? Um, so I found my I found my task. I fork the repo. I create my branch. I make my focus at smile change, and then I open my pull request. And again, talking about good practices in a good request. Clear title describing the problem. I think that's again confident enough. Automatically extract title from the first heading in Markdown. Great. The steps to reproduce if it's a book, or use case if it is a feature. In my case, this is a feature. So the primary purpose of the pull requesting is to enhance the title extraction logic for an Light and ensures that users do not explicitly provide a tag. I also mentioned how this works, and I also mentioned the changes I made. I added a new function to this file and how that function works. Um, Expect versus actual behavior. In that case, that doesn't apply to me. That will be for doing an issue. And the environment retails if they are relevant. In this case, they weren't. So thanks for your work. Could you add the test code for that? I forgot to add the test code, but hey, that was my bad. For sure, working on it. I don't know. Okay, it took me like 2 weeks for running the code, check the CI. Okay, even it helped me with this. I worked to fix up the report audits, and I was having a problem because I do thought I got my test approved. Actually, the maintainer point to me that I was not rewriting the format. Actually, I was just highlighting the syntax. Yeah, I have conflicts with my Rocker rules because I was having a prettier global configuration messing up. For the initial release, this is fine. In the future release, it will be better to use Markdown rendering line to reflect the exact contents. And some code suggestions here. I resolved them. We relaxed failure of CF. Okay. Yeah, I did something else I can remember. But you see, if there's a conversation, there's an interchange of uh, you make your pull request, and you cannot expect to be like, oh yeah, here you go, you we just accept it. The maintainer and our collaborators are going to see the code and going to expect them, and that is great. Don't take it as a bad thing. Actually, that is why you end up learning a lot in open source, and you end up increasing your skills in multiple ways. um, so finally this was approved, and it was merged the with the final and release, and that's why we can have this now, learning OS. Um, Mention this pull request, a follow up for auto detection of the slides title. This is a follow up update unit test. Okay, okay, this was something for the maintainer, and that's great. That's the example I wanted to share because that's something I worked on. Uh, I'm here. And well, there are other collaborators. So we can return and let's keep talking about these pull request checklists, what I changed, what this helps, how to test, cover this. Some of the best practices: keep pull requests small. Also, don't abuse of doing that. I mean, we don't want in Mexico we say we don't want the Bible of what you did. Like, just tell me, keep it short, but uh, actually tell me something like what you did, right? Um, Link to the related issue. I mentioned that I shared the related issue. Yeah, this fixes the issue. And follow up repo for contributing markdown. Here, I have to admit, it was my bad not adding the test as I should. Maintainer best practice from the guides. Again, in more perspective of a maintainer, we have to add the documentation and guidance, the contributing, the code of conduct, adding things like templates for the issues and pull requests are great. Providing a quick short start of the README for the first time contributors, it's also great. Here in all the projects we have seen, they have a great README, right? Something that it's showing what the project is, how to use it, how to get started, where to find things like documentation, where to find things like the code of conduct, where to find things like the contribution guidelines. For example, again, if I return to the open source template and in the README one, it's what this project is, how to install the usage, documentation, testing, contribution, license, code of conduct, the acknowledgement parts, contact. You can reach out to me at this, the change log. Some projects at this, I feel when you manage a project, I mean, GitHub, I just love it. I here. And GitHub, you can do everything in GitHub. I don't know, for example, some people like Atlassian or having Miro boards or other external tools, but I do feel like you can do everything on GitHub. Um, Having the changelog here, not in the README, but there is like a path for release or something somewhere around here. Even you can have the wiki. Um, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Here, for example, for this specific one, the disclaimer, it's final. Remember, every project is different, so feel free to adjust this template to fit your needs. Sections can be added or removed, and the goal is to provide a clear and concise overview of the project, making it easy for others to understand and contribute. This template is a starting point, and you can modify it as need to fit your project specific requirements. So, talking about again automations, and finally, I think we also cover the governance and sustainability. No, sorry, we cover everything except for governance and sustainability. Um, when you start working in these projects, let's say, for example, for waste, that it's being used for, well, not this, sorry, this socialify. It has a lot of stars. It has a lot of issues. I don't know if we has a metric of activity. No, I don't know if Way has like a metric of people actually using this to calling the service. Uh, but for when your project, what I want to say, it starts scaling, you have to worry about this governance, as in terms of you probably cannot be the only one deciding the future of the project, and you have to start relying on other people and trusting that I will think that's a better word to say, trusting on others to keep with the vision or evolve it even, and understanding that delegating some tasks, delegating some decisions, and how a decision is going to be made if you're not only the only responsible now. That's about the governance, right? So be transparent with all of these things as in a community, having a document for every decision making, having things like the roadmaps, recognizing again contributors, and rotate the maintainer duties. That's a great thing to ensure your project doesn't die because of you being the bottleneck of everything. And I've seen that in a lot of not only open source projects but projects in general. uh, the original owners, the original leaders, turning themselves in bottlenecks because they cannot rely on others. They cannot trust others, or they know how to delegate, and that's awful. So another thing to have in mind, and it's very important, it's to set boundaries to avoid the burnout. Um, I think I mentioned this, but we're going to reach to the references at the end. Um, I'm inspired and I'm taking the solid knowledge from the GitHub like guidelines for open source. And in there are one dedicated for balance of life and maintainers. Um, there are other for governance if you the governance and leadership, if you want to check it out. uh, that it's great. So yeah, be aware of that. I mean, it's an important factor. So we're reaching this hands-on project. Um, 3.1, we're taking a look during the whole session. The open source project template. I already shared it with you. Here it is. Uh, And the goal is to fork the pick an improvement or suggestion and open up pull request or issue. And remember, keep your change small and focused. I am going to share with you some ideas or suggestions that you could use. And these ones are based on expertise. So, depending on your level, you can choose one or another. Um, so the beginner one, which I think it's very low friction, it's to add a fact to fix a typo or grammar issue in the README. I don't know if I have some of them, but I even identified myself one error in not the README but in the code of conduct. Here, responsible for enforcement at, and I forget to change this one. I mean, these this reach out to me, this kind of contact, it's already here, so that will be the same. I could even open an issue. I'm going to say bug report, describe the bug, the code of conduct doesn't have a email in G enforcement part to reproduce. This is not something needed. Expected behavior. The contact method in that section should be Alberto at camarena.me. And screenshot, I'm going not to add a screenshot, but I'm going to open this. Yeah, it's great. I'm going to add a label called good first issue and help wanted and documentation. Yeah. So I'm going to close this. I'm not going to cite anything or a milestone or a project, but I'm going to create that. Oh, title. Missing contact info in code of conduct enforcement. Great. Great. So that there you go. You have one. That's only one. I mean, for example, oh, sorry. If you add your name to a contributor's markdown in the actual context, you'll be creating a contributor's markdown. So please also add me. So that these are quick changes and they are not that complicated. These are for beginners. If you consider yourself a beginner, that will be a great introduction for you. An intermediate. Again, sorry for here using meaningful. All contributions are meaningful. Improve the contribution markdown. I think I lived kind of free, not that Polish. Some of the contributing guides here, I use say use the template is the feature request. You can inform yourselves more about this and making contributions for this section and even for the templates. I'll appreciate that a lot. Also, you can create a readme.s markdown, and if you're watching from other place that speak Spanish, you can help me translate this or any other part of the documentation. I mean, I hope all of the parts of the documentation. And I'm just saying Spanish because that's the ES. But you can do if you speak French, if you speak also Chinese, if you speak Portuguese, I will appreciate having some translations here. Um, and you can also add some light code if you feel like for creating some automation there. And advanced maintainer focused, it's proposed some CI. Well, in this case, it's purely a template, so that will be interesting to see how you propose some of this. Uh, but yeah, the automations not only for the coding part, but imagine, oh, I closed them, but the status one we saw here, for example, in the marked, I love those automations, and it's a matter of just scrapping. For example, if we have forks, we can display it here as well. If we have stars, we can display it here as well. If someone it's adding I don't know code, we can create a lot of automations for relating the readme to be more visual, for example. That could be great. And have or finding more automations are in other great open source projects and bringing them here. That's the idea of having this template, right? So that will be really, really much appreciated. So the last one, and this can be more for non-code. This doesn't have a category of advanced, beginner, or intermediate because I don't think I can divide it that way. But a creative one, it's to improve, for example, the accessibility, check things as headings, if I'm missing some alt for the images, if I am missing other accessibility concerns. I haven't checked these to be working in a screen reader, for example, things like that. Another creative or no code contribution should be to create, for example, some tutorials, some videos that we call uh, put in here, and that you record yourselves saying like, hey, you're new to open source, you're new to GitHub, and here's how you can fork this, how you can clone it, then you can change these, and help me, I don't know, add a video or something like that. I was saying like, hey, help me taking this open source template, make my first open source project, and you will be modifying things like in these 5 minutes, 2 minutes video. And that will be great. Designing also like a small banner logo that actually, now that I know ways social flyer, how it was called, socialify project, probably I add something like this. You can create a, a contribution or a pull request for adding that to this project. That will be amazing. I will appreciate it. Uh-huh. So to wrap up, I think we can start with finishing this session. Don't worry, I will add a Q&A at the end, but a reflection I want to share is that one of the most threatening, well, I wouldn't say that. I will say, I know starting in open source can be threatening. That is true. Uh, that's not true that it's hard, or that it's not true that you should be an expert. That's not true, but it can be threatening. I do get it, and it's finding your first contribution, finding your first project to contribute on. That can be also kind of hard. My recommendation it's to find it in a natural way. You will see that probably a lot of the software that you already are using, it's open source. Try to see if you can help that software that you love, that you use in your day by day, making better. That same happened to me with the Morp tool, and that's why I wanted to share with the rest. I used Morp. I found that I could help doing some code, this title auto completion, and I did that. It did require me to know a little bit of the problem of the code. Also, it's a stopper. If, for example, this tool you love, it's right in C, but you don't know C and you know Python. I mean, that's a great opportunity to learn any technology. But I get the problem, you know. But what I want to say it's find something that you're passionate about. That's the main point, and share your passion with the rest of the people using that technology, that piece of software, and that is open source. Again, remember, not all contributions has to be code. You can start contribution with ideas, with interacting with the rest at the forums, and at some point you will make your code contribution, right? Because yes, at the end we require code contributions, but we also require the non-code contributions. Some of the references, it's the how to contribute and the open source guide for best practices as well, and in the GitHub docs for issues, pull request based for the best practices. I think it's worth opening one of these. and going to the main one to help you see all of the great resources they have: the legal size, open source metric, code of conduct, leadership and governance, find users for your project, starting, how to contribute, maintaining balance for maintainers, security and best practices. So there are some of these I already talked about. I hope in future sections we can discuss more. For example, talking about more of the leadership and governance will be interesting, at least to me. Talking now about the getting paid for open source, that also could be interesting, and that's something I want to talk. Um, I think for the rest, I already talked, except from this finding one, the security one, and metrics. So I am well, I'm at the balance. So there are a lot of content we can cover for next Global Hack Weeks. For this one, that was it. Thank you so much. And I will just love to see if you have any questions. If you do, drop them in the chat. I'll give some minutes. And well, I also have another thing to share. Give me a second. Okay, yeah. Before I forget, please share your thoughts with us here on mlh.link/global slash global hack week feedback, or GHW feedback. Hmm. We really appreciate when you share your thoughts with us. And I think you don't have more questions. I don't see at least anyone here on the comment sections. So I only need to thank you for joining me for this session. I know it's late for some of you. And well, I think it's kind of late for me. And good morning if that's the case as well, because that happens a lot. Um, Again, I just want to say thank you for joining. If you're watching this on recording, again, thanks for giving me your time. Remember, we still have Ryan Lake coming up with Nature of Code Part 2. Don't miss that out. And we still have the closing ceremony. So that will be it for the Global Hack Week, Beginners Week, but sorry, beginners, open source week. But we still have coming up the IP API week on November 7th to November 13th. I hope to be streaming more content in there. So see you around. Thanks. Bye bye.